Hey guys, welcome back to another video. What we're going to be talking about today are the best learning strategies you can use to maximize your productivity, especially if you're just starting out how to code. If you're just starting out learning how to code, you're brand new to this whole concept of software engineering, of programming. What are the best things you could do, and what are some things that you can avoid to not waste your time and to just be as productive as possible, right? What I see a lot is that people are working very hard. They're hustling, they're grinding, they're spending 10 to 12 hours a day learning how to code. They're sacrificing a lot of time, and they're watching a lot of videos and building. And while that's a really good thing, you really need to be systematic in the way you approach learning something, right? Anything you want to learn for the first time is going to be, made a lot easier if you make a plan, if you have a game plan to, solve different problems, and you have like a step-by-step process you want to follow. Just because you're going to be watching 20 courses and spending 100 hours learning JavaScript doesn't mean you're going to get a job. A lot of people think that if they just learn all the syntax, learn all the semantics, and just spend like a ton of time learning, they're going to have job offers knocking on their door. People are going to want to hire them and give them 200K salaries. That's not how it works. Just because you sit down for 8 hours a day and you just code away, or if you just watch like 10 hours of courses a day, nothing is really going to happen unless you have a plan. So the first thing I want to mention, the first kind of strategy I want to give you guys is you really have to understand the difference between active and passive learning, and you want to find the right balance. So passive learning is kind of when you're just watching a course or either watching a video and you're just taking information in. You're taking notes, you're really understanding the concepts, but you're not really doing anything. You're not really applying what you're learning. Whereas active learning is, you're not really watching anything, you're not taking anything in, but you're just taking what concepts you learned, the things you know, and you're applying them to a certain project or to a certain problem, right? So you really want to find the balance between the two. If you do too much passive learning, if you're just watching videos, you're just watching courses, you're not actually coding, then you're not going to be able to code. Right? When you get into a job interview, or not even that, when you try to build something, you're going to be like, what do I do? Where do I start? What's going on? Also, on the other hand, if you're doing too much active learning, if you just start coding without knowing anything about coding, you're not going to know any of the fundamentals, any of the syntax, any of the, different things about a language that make it work, and you're going to be writing garbage. So you really have to find a balance. Earlier on, right when you're starting off, I would say spend more time with passive learning, maybe 3 hours of passive learning for every 1 hour of active learning. You want to sit down, you want to watch a course, watch a video, and then spend a bit of time, a lot less time, actually applying it. When you actually spend more time, you are more experienced, then you want to do more of a one-to-one, passive to active. You want to spend an hour learning, then an hour coding. And then once you're in the real world, once you're actually a software engineer, you want to spend 4 hours writing and then 1 hour coding. 4 hours coding and then 1 hour learning or watching a video. So you really want to find the right balance. Depends on you and depends on where you are in your journey to become a programmer. The second thing, and this is really important, is to apply spacing, is to take rest and to take breaks when you're learning. So for example, if you're like taking a course right on JavaScript and you see, okay, it's 7 hours, I'm gonna do it all today, I'm gonna cram it all in one day and that's it, and then I'm gonna know everything, right? While you may think that's a good idea, it might be a better strategy, and a lot of actually studies have shown that if you do maybe 2 hours a day, you space it out, it could be actually a lot more beneficial for you, because you're learning a small part of all the concepts you're trying to learn, and then the next day you're revisiting those concepts. You obviously will forget. Let's say you spend an hour learning JavaScript, the next day you're going to forget what you learned the day before, right? And then you're going to revisit it and remind yourself, and then that kind of reinforces it in your head and really lets you get that knowledge for the long term. Whereas if you just spend 7 hours on one day learning everything, then you never revisit it again, obviously, you're not going to have as good of an understanding of the concepts. The third thing I want to mention, and this is something that's awesome, this is something that I learned in school, and it's you want to be able to teach the concept to others. If you learn something, you spend some time on a course, and then you kind of apply it to a project, and you're thinking, wow, okay, I really have the hang of this. Then you want to, either write a blog post or kind of find someone that's in a similar situation as you, maybe on like a Facebook group or like whatever, maybe a friend of yours or another coworker or whatever it is, and you want to teach it to them. If you're able to explain a concept to someone else very concisely, get them to understand it as well, then that you understand it right. You understand all the concepts, everything about it, and if you can teach it to someone else, that's really a great way to learn something, and it's a great strategy to apply, especially when you're learning new things. Also, when you try to teach something to someone else, you'll quickly see that sometimes, you don't know something as well as you thought you did, right? So that'll kind of reinforce your learning and be like, okay, I have to improve with this. You're trying to explain someone one thing and you can't really explain it too well. Then it'll tell you that you don't have as good of an understanding as you thought you did, and it'll kind of make you revisit it. Then you can try again, kind of iterate like that until you have a great understanding. I think it's an awesome way to learn, guys. The fourth thing I want to mention is, as you're learning, let's say you're taking a course and you're going through it, and then you have a question here, a question there. You really want to keep track of the questions you have, right? So don't just, listen to something and then you're confused and then you leave it. You're too shy to ask a question, or, you just forget about it. You're like, whatever, I'll learn it later. Write it down, have a notepad or have like a Google Doc, something. Write down all your questions so that when you're done, you can revisit them, and then you'll have a much better understanding of everything you're trying to learn, of all the concepts you're trying to understand. Because otherwise, there's just going to be a ton of little things that you don't understand. And then as over time, they add up, and it's really going to slow your progress. It's really going to stunt your growth. And if you keep track of your questions, you'll know where to go when you're stuck, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I didn't do this thing. Let me revisit it. Let me do this. And then you'll kind of learn it over again. And it'll really, really end up, the result will be that you know it a lot more than you would have if you just, ignored the questions and just moved on. And the last thing, I know this is probably redundant for a lot of you guys, but you really want to rest and you want to recover. This is kind of like the first tip that I mentioned. Don't just spend 16 hours a day coding and then sleep for 4 hours and then wake up again. When you don't sleep, it makes you learn slower. I think it actually drops your IQ, and you really will just be tired and not the same. You especially if you're like working a full-time job, you have kids, you come home, you spend 6 hours coding, it's 3 a.m., you go to sleep, you wake up at 7 to go to work, stuff like that. You really want to rest, you really want to recover, you really want to sleep. When you have a problem you can't solve, you sleep it off, and then you often can find the solution the next day, right? So it's very, very crucial not to just overwhelm yourself when you're trying to learn how to code, right? Because not only is it going to be harder, but it's probably going to lead you to giving up. If you're not sleeping, if you're spending too much time, you're getting burnt out, you're probably just going to say, fuck it, and stop coding altogether. So you really want to balance your time. You want to rest appropriately and recover appropriately so that you don't burn out, and so you can keep yourself, at 100%. And learn everything well. So guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you like the content, feel free to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you think I should add or something you disagree with. And like always, I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy your coding. Take it easy.